Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Hanley Effect. I'm John Dybin.
I'm Rachel Dosical.
How are you, Dr. D?
Hi, Dr. D. How are you today?
I'm great. So I'm exhaling and I'm feeling very comfortable because our guest is a man who has become a friend. I consider him a mentor. He has mentored many, many, many people. I'm honored that I've been able to develop a friendship with him over the past year and a half. But man, every time I see him, even when it's virtual, I just have this sense of calm. And you're always like, jacking me up. So it helps. I don't even know where that came from.
Lies.
But we have Jerry Moe with us today. And I am so excited to talk to Jerry about who he is, what he does, his life, his story, and also what he's doing now. And let's talk a little bit about, we talk a lot about addiction, about treatment, about people. And there is a group of people that gets missed a lot. Yeah. And that's the kids.
The kids.
Every family that struggles with any chronic disease, the kids are struggling with it too. And Jerry Moe has spent a lifetime helping kids, giving them a voice, helping them understand, and developing freedom, when they have been captivated by secrecy and other things. I want Jerry to talk about it. Jerry, thank you for being here and welcome.
So glad you're with us.
It is a gift and blessing to be with both of you today. Thanks for the invitation.
So we would, and it's a long time ago on a podcast far, far, far away. We had some of these conversations, but I'd love to have them again. And I'd love because we have a whole new audience.
We do.
I'd love for people to get to know, who are you? Tell us a little bit about what you do and your story that brings you here today.
I'll be glad to, and I promise I'll keep it brief. So I have spent my entire adult life working in treatment and recovery, which, looking back is, oh my goodness. And like so many of us who enter this field, I grew up with this disease, with the unpredictability and the inconsistency and just loving someone so much. In this case was my dad, and hoping upon hope that somehow he could get better and not succumb to this. The fear so many boys and girls have, they're going to lose that person that they love. And yet, I think that's all I want to say about growing up with the disease, because sometimes I fear that we spend so much time talking about what it was like that we don't spend enough time about, what happened and what changed and how we can grow and find balance and resilience and hope in our lives. I was incredibly blessed at the age of 14, and then I got help. And I got help as a result of making some really poor decisions, based on anger and guilt and shame. It was the secret that everybody knew what was going on in my family, that disease of isolation, and not opening up and telling anybody about it. And so one of the consequences, thank goodness, was that I began to go to Alateen, a 12-step program for teens growing up in families where there's addiction. Completely changed my life. It's been one of the few times in my life where I walked into a place where I knew absolutely no one, and yet I left feeling like I was just with my family. People
like
that
you belonged. Yeah.
People who, kids that had gone through the same thing. And the funny thing, I'm 14 growing up in San Francisco, so my mom had to drive me. How could I get to Holy Name Church every Tuesday night at 7 p.m.? And so she sat out in the car for the hour. And probably about 3 or 4 weeks in, she decided, well, maybe I will go into the Al-Anon meeting. It was one of those brilliant places where there was AA, there was Al-Anon, and there was Alateen. So the whole family could engage in recovery, much like what you're doing with the children's program right there at Hanley, that opportunity to heal. And not that my mother thought she needed to go, and my dear mom, she lost her mother to alcoholism when she was 18 years old. And then for the first 30 years of almost a 70-year marriage, my dad was drinking in an alcoholic kind of way. And so she started going to meetings, and then we started working together. We had a common language. We had those brilliant slogans, easy does it, and let go and let God, and all of those. And things slowly began to change in our lives while they didn't with my dad. And it would be 18 months later that the next miracle, I really should say, happened. And that's my dad finally asked for help. And I truly believe that what was instrumental in that is my mom and I had learned to detach from his problem and allow him to take full responsibility in it. And so for the rest of my teen years, I was living in a recovering family, which is so unusual.
Yeah.
And was it messy at times? You better believe it. Could it get crazy? Absolutely. But it was a whole lot better than anything that I'd ever experienced up to that point in my life.
Wow.
So eventually, and I love that. I love especially, I've seen so many people come into treatment with young kids.
Yeah.
And they think, it's too late. All the damage. And I love your story because it's as a teenager that you begin to find this, and there is always hope. Where there is recovery, there is always hope. I love that. And you then took that. I know that you became an educator and a teacher, but you eventually took that and you started something really decades ago that wasn't happening. And since that time, can you tell us a little bit about what was it that you started and kind of invested all these years in?
Yeah. For those people watching who are in recovery, or for those people that work in treatment, or sometimes we're double winners, quite honestly. I was shaving one morning to go to my students at the Redwood City School District, and I had a spiritual awakening. And I mean, it was out of nowhere. And what happened is I'm looking in the mirror, and what hit me was what an incredible gift I was given at the age of 14 to get help at one of the lowest points of my life, quite honestly. And I just stopped, and there's tears streaming down my face. And I said, thank you. I mean, finally, I was 22 years old. I think I was finally old enough and mature enough to understand what the gift I'd been given. And while I embraced that, because it was like, why me? Why not my older brother? Why not my older sister? How come I got this gift? And the next thought, honestly, right after that was, what would have happened if somebody had been there when I was 7 years old instead of 14, or 9 years old, or 12-year-olds? And that was it. That was the change. Mark Twain once said that the two most important days in a person's life are the day they're born, and then the day they figure out why.
Yeah.
And so, that was my why right there. That was my why, in terms of, now I know the work that I want to do the rest of my career. And that was the start. Humble start. I had trouble finding a treatment center that would allow me to come in. And I said, look, I'll work for free for a while. Can I come? Let's take all that I learned as a teacher, all that education background, child development, and age appropriate lessons, and having fun with kids. Let's take all of that, along with the principles I learned in Alateen. Can we create a children's program? And I got to tell you, I can look back now and laugh, because I fudged it. So I was with the medical director and the program director. And I had just studied all about Dr. Murray Bowen, family systems theory.
Yeah.
Good Murray came up out of nowhere. Who'd have thunk? And I looked at them and said, if you make this program open to all kids, I'm going to guarantee you by the end of the year, you'll have 10 inpatient admissions and 5 outpatient admissions. It was learning how to talk the right language.
You're a hustler. You hustled. I love it.
Always hustling. That part's never stopped.
And that began, so you developed this children's program, and that began decades of revising and finding and this formula that you have, and we got to know each other. So I always, anybody who's been working in the field knows, who has heard Jerry Moe's name, right?
Sure.
Sorry, people know who you are. But I've certainly always known Jerry Moe, and I've read some of his material, but about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, right? Now we got to actually meet and spend time, and you came and to bring the children's program that we now have at Hanley. And what I found was that you've figured out over time some really, really, really important things about what kids need when they are impacted by addiction. And it's interesting, and I want you to talk more about it, but one of the things is that struck me is that you assume and know kids coming to the program have experienced so many broken promises. And that's just the nature of the disease. And so you have some unique ways of helping kids understand, what, we're going to be safe and trustworthy people, and we're going to keep our promises.
So before Jerry tells this story, I have to pop in and say that, so as the CEO, I'm looking at things that, are in development and have been done. And I remember one Monday morning, right as the program launched, seeing a picture of you, Jerry, fully dressed, but completely soaked.
Yeah.
I mean, and I thought, what is going on here? So tell our listeners what's going on and how that is a promise kept.
Sure. So, over the years, one of the things that I found out, and really no different than that, that 45-year-old mom that's coming into Hanley today for the first time, or that, 58-year-old first responder that's coming into Hanley. Kids come in the program in all different ways. Some are scared, some are angry, a couple of them are excited. And so one of the things we do in that first hour is just plays. It's just about developing a relationship. And we have a koosh ball, just a koosh ball that we toss around. And if kids can toss it 50 times in a row without it hitting the floor, then one of us is going to get pushed in the pool the next day. And so what happens is, all of a sudden you've got all the kids working together. Nobody knew each other walking in. Oh, let's all move our seats in a little bit. And let me, before I throw it to John, I'm going to say, John, here, it's coming to you. Here, Rachel, it's coming to you. And then they, then they get 50, almost always, not always, but almost always, and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going in the pool. And then, the next day comes and kids walk in and they're excited. And they say, you got to jump in the pool. I said, did that really happen? I thought I did. And then I will, I know that the first time, or the time that I jumped in the pool at Hanley, I had written the kids a note and I signed it Jerry's mom. And I explained why, with my poor grades in my room, not being clean and not having proper manners, no fun for me today. And I remember one of the kids taking it and just ripping it up. And so, John, like you said, it's following through. It's bringing in laughter and play, but and it's funny. I think about what children's programs look like when I first started, way back, because you saw kids for an hour one time a week, to what it is now at Hanley, which is 3 days So I think about those boys and girls on September 12 and 14 coming up. They're going to walk in there and do that program, and how it's evolved over days, and adding fun and making it more experiential. Just all the ways that it's changed through the years. But the biggest thing of all is developing a relationship with those kids and those families. And John, the group that you and I did, oh gosh, in December a year ago, do you know that within the last 30 days, I've heard from each of the families that participated?
Amazing.
Either the kids reached out, or the parents reached out, or one of the kids wants to come through again, this time with a dad in recovery. It's the relationships that we build. And sometimes I think I can complicate all of this and just, make it simple, and develop relationships with kids and let them know that you'll be there as long as they want you to be there.
So we get questions from parents. Parents unfortunately have a lot of shame about, having a substance use disorder or having a mental illness. And I really love this approach that you take. Talk about the characters, treatment and recovery for us. This is great.
TNR, we play the game of addiction because you think about it. That's a really abstract concept, addiction, that a person has a disease inside themselves that takes control of their lives. That's why I think most of America still doesn't understand it, because they've not experienced it in their own family. Right. I'm sorry. So that's where that stigma comes from in all of that. So we make addiction out to be this really sleazeball bad guy that lies and cheats and tries to grab a hold of someone and not let him go. And then and so again, things evolve over time. It's not like this whole thing was we kept adding pieces. And so, because kids kept saying, well, we're the good guys. Because, little kids, superheroes, good guys. Where's the DC gang? Where are they? Come on, where is everybody? And so we developed treatment and recovery, and they come in with capes on, and stars on their capes. One says T for treatment, the other says R for recovery. And it's not that I'm resentful, but I hardly ever get to play T or R.
You are such a good addiction. I'm just telling you.
People, which is frightening.
He takes off his name tag that says Jerry, and he puts on the hat that says addiction. And I'm telling you, you're a good bad guy, Jerry.
Yeah, it's a frightening thought, let me tell you. And so treatment and recovery come in the room. And all the kids start cheering T and R, T and R, T and R. And then they point at addiction and say, get him, slam him, wham him, bam him, jam him, get addiction. And yet what we're teaching kids is all the kids can say T and R, but it's still that person who gets stopped is able to ask for help. That's the key. Now, we could do an intervention. The rest of the family, like my mom and I, could start to get help. But that person ultimately has to get to a place where they're willing to accept help. And so well, sometimes folks show up to treatment and bring the body, and hopefully the mind and the spirit and the emotions will follow in all of this. But the other thing, and again, kids are the teachers. Kids are always teaching us how to improve this stuff, is helping kids understand that when mom or dad leave Hanley, let's say, they're going to need to do TNR.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Something they're going to have to do every day, because a lot of kids were getting upset. Well, why are you going to those meetings? I thought you're better all the way.
Right.
And I like to say that going to treatment is like school. And so, okay, so now you're done third grade. Now you got to do fourth grade. Same for recovery. You got to keep working on new skills and tools all the time. And that's a good thing. I'll give you one example, one real quick one. So there was someone really well known in our field that brought his 11-year-old daughter, and he'd been in recovery her whole life, but he just never found the right words to tell her for it to make sense. And so he brings her it was at the Betty Ford Center, and they go through the program, and he is so afraid when it's her turn to share with him on the third day. And he takes me aside and says, I'm afraid she's going to tell me that I love going to meetings more than I love her. So look at the guilt and the shame and the pressure we put on ourselves. And far from it, the little girl said, "Oh, Dad, I am so proud of you.
Ugh,
Look
I
at what
love
you've
that
done."
story.
Yeah.
But then the key part of it was, and then she looked at her dad and said, "And Dad, I promise, now I understand when you need to go to a meeting, I won't get angry anymore because you're going to a meeting is what keeps addiction away from our."
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I love that you explain that. We really want parents to know this is not about talking about your parents. This is about kids truly understanding this disease and, having some tools so that they understand, that they can love their parent and hate the addiction at the same time.
Exactly. And so, and to that point, Rachel, it's being able to tell a person in treatment, hey, there's going to be a process whereby, your kid's going to write a story about addiction and what addiction has done to the family.
Mhm.
So it's not
Right.
about you, it's that awful disease. And teaching
That's right.
people of all ages how to separate those two.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It is one of the most, I've been a therapist for a long time. One of the most powerful things we ever do is separating the person from the problem. Yeah. Michael Wade always said there's the person is never the problem is the problem, but that's really, really tough.
It is.
And it's especially tough for kids, but this gives kids, it is so beautiful because it gives that, and I've seen it and you can see that switch happen where
Absolutely.
it is because they're saying the problem is, first of all, they're saying the problem is me.
Yeah.
That's what kids, that's just
always.
And why is mom doing this? Why? And this does is it says, here's the real problem. It's addiction. And it's got a hold of mom or dad right now, but mom or dad, that they're not the problem. You're not the problem. It's addiction. And the power in that, it's just so freeing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And what I'd add too, John, is that also for that grown up to be able to say,
Right.
I am not my disease.
Yeah.
And it's occupied my life and taken me over, but there's so many more really incredible, special parts of me that can't shine when the addiction is in charge. So equally important to again bust some of that shame, because shame and stigma are still so rampant.
Yeah. One of the nicest things about this children's program is that we have several very, very generous sponsors.
Mhm.
So this program is completely free.
Right.
You don't have to have anything to do with Hanley at all. You just need to have some addiction in your family, period. That's it. And, your child is welcome to come for free.
Anybody who has a child ages 7 to 12 who's been touched in any
way.
I talked to Jerry about a week ago. There's a child in my own life, a young 5.5-year-old who has recently lost a parent to addiction. And the mom, who is a person in my life, was saying, how do I talk to my 5.5, almost 6-year-old daughter? How do I tell her this has happened? How do I, what in the world do we do? And I was able to say that there's going to be support for her. There is help for her, and I'll help you be with her now. But guess what? She's about to turn 7, and there's even going to be this whole children's program for her. And it's, I'll tell you, so I live in, for our listeners, I live in Florida and Jerry lives in California. You're out there we're all in the sun, but it so much, just thinking about that this kid that I love is going to benefit from this. It drove it to another personal level, even deeper. And I was, texting Jerry and just saying, thank you. There are so many parents out there, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends who who are going to have this situation. They're going to have children that are saying, I don't understand this, and the good news is that there is help. One of the things I wanted to have you talk about just real quick, because there are some things that people can get right this second just from their computer.
Sure.
And one of the things that I love that you've done is done work with Sesame Street. And can you talk to us a little bit about Carly and about how parents or teachers who have kids who are struggling with this right now can even get some access to information right this second?
Yeah. And actually, just recently, there's been a couple of additions to the website. We added some new material that I'll tell you about too.
Can't wait.
So Sesame Street is just incredible. I mean, they've been my heroes forever in that their love for children. And gosh, almost a decade ago, they started to realize that if they don't help little kids deal with the trauma in their lives, that it really gets in the way of their learning and their growth and development. And so in 2019, Sesame Street decided that one of the initiatives was going to be the parental addiction initiative. And so they created this Muppet, and she's just precious. I mean, I'm after Sesame Street. Get me a doll. I want a Carly doll. So just picture this, and you'll see her. I'll tell you the website to go to. So she's lime green with blonde pigtails and a pretty little purple nose. And her mom is in treatment and about to come home. And so it's a dedicated website, and it's for professionals. John, you mentioned teachers, counselors. It's for people in early recovery who don't know how to talk to their kids can go to the website. But it's also for families that are working on their own healing. And so early this year, Sesame Street got some additional funds, by incredibly generous and kind folks, the kind that donate right to you at Hanley. And so what's happening now is Carly's mom has just come home from treatment. And so the two things that are there that I just love. So there's Carly's journal. So Carly keeps a journal mostly of artwork, but a couple of words, and talks about what it's like now. Mom and Carly are settling into routines whereby twice a week they have dinner together. Friday night's the favorite. They have pizza, and then they read and play games. They go to the park on Sundays. Carly's going to see her counselor and goes to a kids-only meeting, much like what's going on at Hanley. And here's Mom now with the reality, I'm out of treatment, but gosh, I'm working and I'm going to meetings, and times there's not enough hours in the day. So it's really good for people in early recovery to keep a calendar and to follow through with the structure. And so in the story, at Friday night, Carly loves pineapple pizza. Her mom likes, I think, olive pizza. But Carly's mom had to work late, and then she didn't come home on time. And what happens to Carly? She begins to get scared.
Yeah.
Oh no, is it happening again? And talks to Elmo's dad about it. And then Carly's mom does come home. Carly's able to tell her mom, Mommy, I was really scared. Here's what I thought happened. And so, it just so beautifully deals with early recovery stuff. And you think about it. And think about between the three of us, how many years collectively we've worked in treatment. And to me, one of the challenges, because people come in with so many needs. Rich, you were talking about people not only with substance use disorder, but with mental health challenges on top of it.
That's right.
And so we work hard on, okay, let's give them the best treatment that we possibly can in the amount of time we have. But there's so many things that we can't cover during that time. And so how do we follow up on those things? And who would have ever thought that Sesame Street would be a resource for people early in recovery to go to and to learn how to talk? And so no matter what search engine you use, just put in Sesame Street parental addiction, and you'll see it. And it's wonderful stuff. And I was so incredibly blessed to be on set when we filmed a couple of the episodes, or a couple of the segments that are on the website. And you two have had what I'm about to share. I know for a fact. But those times in our career where we end up someplace and it's really dark on set and there's about 40 people and just the buzz and the energy and everybody loving little kids and wanting to give much more than 100%. And it's like I looked around and said, how in the world did I ever end up here?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
So great.
Beyond wildest dreams. And you've had those, I know both of you have had those experiences. And just an amazing, just an amazing thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
It is a gift to be able to, and I'll be thinking now about all of those moments all day. Have to be the bad guy because I know that we're coming to our end. I want to just really emphasize for any parents, any folks listening, and there are resources. Remember that HanleyFoundation.org. You can come to our site and you'll find our children's program page. There's no fee for this program. It has been covered. We take care of the food. I mean, it is
everything.
Looking up Sesame Street parental addiction, I will tell you that I have shared those things with more folks than I can tell, because I know rocket science. When you don't have clear direction, rocket science is a lot easier than trying to explain something to a young child, especially when there's a lot of emotion involved. Yes. And man, so the gift, Jerry, that you've given so many to help to explain to kids and give kids some freedom so that they can understand not only what's happening, but that it's not their fault and that they can take care of themselves. We always like to let you have, though, the last word. And so, Jerry, to the folks that are listening, what is one thing that you would want them to hear from Jerry Moe today?
Sure. I'll do two real quick. As you are giving me kudos for helping kids understand things, I think the difference about little kids is that when they don't understand it, I get that instant feedback like,
yes, that's right.
We stop doing that as we get older, so they give that feedback. I guess the last thing that I would say is first of all, thanks to both of you and thanks to Hanley for really making children's program a priority. I mean, that's huge these days. And I think that while I'd want to tell little kids that it's not your fault and you're not alone, and there are people out there, I call them safe people who can help. And I also want to talk to that mom in early recovery or the grandparents thinking about bringing their grandkids to a children's program, or that dad who has been sober longer than his child has been alive. And while shame and stigma get in the way, to me, the biggest thing that gets in the way is we get scared for our kids and our grandkids. Yeah. And because often they say, if I tell them this, what will they think of me? Yeah. And if I tell them this, will they still love me? And so while it's a children's program, and John, you've experienced it, it's more. And not that a children's program isn't enough, it is, but it's more. It's a family program that really allows families to heal and have the kind of life they so richly deserve.
Yes.
Jared, thank you.
My pleasure.
Man, always love chatting with you. And it is always a pleasure. Wish we had like a triple amount of time.
I know. Jerry, you're incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dosicle.
Thank you, Dr. D.
I'm glad we got to have yet another time with Jerry Moe. I always love our time together.
So good.
And thank you, everybody who's watching or listening. We'll see you next time on The Hanley Effect.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for The Hanley Effect. To learn more about our programs, visit hanleyfoundation.org or call 844-502-4673.